This is the final video of this part of the unit. You're going to have your quiz tomorrow. This is a tricky lesson. The quiz is not going to focus too much on this, but this is good to know. Which whole number is closest to this number here? So it's 1.3 is the number in question. And as you can see here, the number that 1.3 is closest to is 1. Okay, it's not closer to 2. So if you look at this number line here, I mean, this is obviously much closer to this. Okay, let's move on. So now we are going to do the same thing for these next few numbers here. So I included the number line at the top, as you can see. So 1.4 is going to be right over here. And 1.4 is closer to 1. It's closer to 1. 1.9 is located right here. So what's it closer to, 1 or 2? Well, obviously, by looking at it, you can see that it is closer to 2. 2.7, 2.7 is right here. Is it closer to 2 or 3? Well, as you can see, it's really close to 3. Okay, and the number 2.2, which is located right here, it is also closer to 2. Okay. Round to the nearest whole number. When it says whole number, it means this side of the decimal, so left of the decimal. Okay, so is 3.7 closer to 3.0 or 4.0? Well, the answer is 4.0. So when this number here is 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, or 0.9, you round up. And if it's 0, it stays the same. But if it's 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, or 0.4, you round down. Okay. So round to the nearest whole number. So 9.7, because it's 5 and higher, would round to 10. That's the number that is after 9. So now we have a 0.4. 0.4 tells us to round down. When we say round down, this number here stays the same. So you could put 10.0 or 3.0, but your number would be 3. 4.6, well, the 6 tells us to go up. That makes it 5.0. 2 tells us to go down. So that means your answer is that. 8.1, the 1 tells us to go down. So it's 8.0. The 9 tells us to go up, making it 7.0. 0.3, the 3 tells us to go down, so we have 0.0. And 0.7, 1.0. Okay. So now we're going to do this with 2 decimal spots now. So 3.42, is it closer to 3 or 4? Well, this is the number that's important to us, the one next to the decimal, because it's asking us for the nearest whole number. So all the underlying digits right now are the numbers that we need to look at. So 3.42, it's a 4, so it needs to go closer to 3.0. 3.56, this is a 5 right here. This goes into this category here. 3.12, the 1 tells us to go down. 3.85, 3.85 tells us to round up. 3.52, at 3.5, the 0.5 tells us to round up. So these are all done. 3.31, the 3 tells us to round down. So it's closer to 3. 3.27, same thing. The 2 tells us to round down. The 9 tells us to round down here. Here we have a 0. So it tells us to round down. And 3.51, it rounds up. Okay. I know I'm going through this quickly, but you can pause the video and rewatch it if you would like. So what is the nearest whole number? So because we're looking at whole number, which is right here, this is the digit that matters. 5 tells us to round up. So the closest whole number is 5. Whole number, this is the digit that tells us what to do. The 1 tells us to round down. Here's the whole number. There's the digit that matters. 0 tells us to stay the same or to round down. Doesn't matter how you say it. Here is the whole number. This is the 9. It tells us what to do. 8. 9 tells us to go up. And here's the whole number 7. The 2 tells us to round down. Round to the nearest whole number. So here we go. Whole number. The 5 tells us to go up. The answer is 3. Here's the whole number. We have a 5. Goes up. As you can see, all these numbers here end with our decimal 5. If it's decimal 50, you round up. Example, round 2.365 to the nearest tenth. So the nearest tenth is right here. So when you're rounding it to the nearest tenth, the digit that matters is this. So 2.3 stays the same. 6 tells us to round up to 7, and the other one goes 0. Okay, this right here is basically what I wrote in an earlier slide. So this is something that you can write down, practice. It will be very helpful. Okay. Slide 10. So they've underlined the place value. So round to the underlined place value. So we have to round to the nearest tenth. So because it's the nearest tenth, what we're going to do, the nearest tenth, this is the number that matters here. And the 5 tells us to go up. That makes this answer 13.5. We're asked to round to the nearest 1, or the nearest whole number. This is the number that matters here. 4 tells us to go down. The answer is 38. And then you have 612.389. They're asking us to round to this number. This is the number that matters. This would make the answer 612.390. And for the last example, here's where we have to round. Nearest tenth, this is the number that matters. It's a 4. That means it rounds down to 740, decimal 740. Let's round 2.965 to the nearest tenth. So here is the nearest. This is the tenth right here. This is the digit that matters. 2, 9. Sorry, my mistake. Let me redo this. I do not have editing access on this thing, so I am not going to bother. 2.9, the nearest tenth is right here. Oh, I did have it right. My apologies. So the 6 tells us to round up. Well, the number that comes after 9 is 10. And in this situation, this would just get rounded up to 3.00. Okay, so it's just like the number 29. If I say round it to the nearest 10, you would make it 30. Okay, there's just a decimal in there right now. If this number had no decimals, it was 2,965. And I say round it to the nearest 100, that would also be 3,000. So the nearest 100 and the nearest 1,000 would be the same thing. Okay, so it will be a little confusing. However, the more practice you get, the more understanding you'll have, and you're just going to get better. Here's the final slide, this long video, and it says round to the stated place value using grid paper. So let's do A over here. It says 43.698, and it needs it to the nearest hundredths, sorry. So the nearest hundredths, this is the value that matters. So this would turn into a 0. So you're basically rounding 69 up. And here's your answer. Okay, this is why it's always good to work backwards with numbers. I know sometimes I work forwards, and it's not the best way to do it. So it's a bad habit I got into when I was young, but anyways, doesn't matter now. Nearest tenths. Tenths is located right here. This is the digit that tells us what to do. This digit here doesn't matter. In this case, who cares what that number is? It means nothing to us. So the 9 tells us to round up. So if we round 9 up, it goes up one place value. So in this case, the answer would be 75.000. For C, it says 59.517, and it's asking us to round to the nearest ones. Here's the ones, and here is the digit that matters. 5 tells us to round up, so 59 rounds up to 60. And I'm just going to include the zeros just so you can understand that when you're rounding, you need to get rid. The goal is to get rid of the numbers and make everything zeros. Here's a very large number that you will not have to deal with, but let's do it anyways. It says thousandths, so here's thousandths. This is the digit that matters, the 10,000ths. Well, the 7 tells us to round up. And in this case, we got 99. Very easy. So we turn it to 84.1000. Okay. Remember, tomorrow's quiz is not going to have too much of this stuff. It might be a multiple choice question. But yeah, rewatch the video. More practice, you'll do better. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.